Chapter 1. The applause he can't bring home. The email arrived at 9:14 a.m., which meant Tom Allenson read it while standing in the kitchen, barefoot on cool tile, scraping peanut butter onto toast with one hand and holding his phone with the other. Congratulations. It began, which was never how emails from work began. He read it twice, then a third time, slower, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something more believable. Recipient of the Regional Performance Excellence Award. There was a date, a venue, a line about invited guests welcome. Dad. His son Ben said from the table, mouth full and accusatory. You're staring again. Tom blinked. Sorry, buddy. His daughter Lucy, 6 and precise, peered at him over her cereal bowl. Is it a good stare or a bad stare? He smiled automatically. Good. Definitely good. Like ice cream good? Ben asked. Like, maybe cake good, Tom said, which felt accurate. Cake was celebratory but shared. Cake implied someone else cutting a slice for you. Faith entered the kitchen already on a call, blazer on, hair pinned back with efficient neatness. She mouthed coffee at Tom and pointed to her watch, then turned her attention back to whoever was speaking in her ear. Yes, I can move that, she said. No, that's fine. I'll handle it. Tom poured her coffee, added the oat milk she preferred, slid the mug toward her. She flashed him a grateful smile and covered the receiver. You're a lifesaver, she said. He wondered briefly if lifesavers were ever noticed once the emergency passed. At work, congratulations followed him like a low-grade parade. Handshakes, slaps on the back. Someone joked about him finally having proof he wasn't just quietly competent. Tom laughed in the right places, nodded, said thank you until the words lost texture. At lunch, he stared at the calendar invite again. Thursday night, 2 weeks away. That evening, after dinner and homework and a minor meltdown over missing socks, Tom found Faith in the living room scrolling on her phone, feet tucked beneath her. Hey, he said, sitting beside her. Hey, she replied, still smiling at whatever she was reading. Are you doing anything Thursday night in a couple weeks? He asked. She frowned slightly, thumb pausing. Which Thursday? The 23rd. She scrolled. I think that's the night Jen's birthday thing. Drinks, I think. Why? Oh, no reason, Tom said too quickly. Faith glanced up. You sure? Yeah, just checking. She nodded, already drifting back to her screen. I already said yes, so. Of course, Tom said. You should go. She leaned over and kissed his cheek. Thanks for being flexible. Flexible. He held onto the word as she stood to plug in her phone. He could have told her then. Could have said it's my award ceremony or I'd like you there or I need you to want to be there. The words lined up neatly in his mind and refused to move toward his mouth. Later, lying in bed beside her, he listened to her breathing settle into sleep and wondered when wanting to be chosen had started to feel like asking for too much. The night of the ceremony arrived dressed in polite grandeur. Soft lighting, crisp tablecloths, the hum of professional small talk. Tom stood near the back of the room, jacket buttoned, hands clasped loosely, watching couples lean toward each other, whispering observations, sharing private reactions to public moments. His name was called. Applause rose, warm and generous. He walked to the stage, accepted the plaque, smiled for the camera. The presenter said kind things, specific things, impact, leadership, quiet excellence. Tom scanned the room without meaning to. He knew Faith wouldn't be there. He had known for 2 weeks. Still, his chest tightened with the childish hope that she'd appear late, breathless, apologetic. She didn't. Afterward, colleagues congratulated him again. Someone asked where his wife was. Out with friends, Tom said, and smiled like it was a joke. At home later, he set the plaque on the sideboard. It looked out of place among the mail and the bowl of orphaned keys. Faith was already asleep when he climbed into bed. He lay there, awake, replaying the night. Not the applause, but the empty chair he hadn't reserved. Months passed in competent harmony. Lunches packed, carpools coordinated, texts exchanged about groceries and schedules. They moved around each other like well-trained dancers who no longer made eye contact. One evening, as they folded laundry together, Faith held up one of his shirts. This one's getting thin, she said. We should replace it. It's fine, Tom said. She smiled. You always say that. He watched her fold it anyway, neat and efficient, and felt something small and sharp lodge behind his ribs. Later, he sat alone at the kitchen table, the house quiet, and let the thought surface fully formed. Does she love me, or does she just trust me to keep everything running? It wasn't an accusation. It was a question, and it terrified him with its patience. Tom looked around the room. The clean counters, the signed permission slips, the calendar full of shared responsibility, and realized that from the outside, nothing was wrong. From the inside, he felt like a prop someone forgot to thank. He stood, turned off the light, and went upstairs, carrying the question with him like something fragile he didn't yet know how to set down. Chapter 2, Reliable as Furniture. Tom learned he had become furniture on a Tuesday afternoon. The realization arrived without drama, which felt appropriate. No crash, no revelation, Just a quiet understanding settling in, like dust on a surface no one wiped because no one noticed it anymore. He was in the break room, stirring sugar into coffee he didn't want, when Kyle from analytics leaned against the counter and said, "Man, you ever notice how the dependable guys never get fussed over?" Tom smiled politely. "Is this a riddle?" Kyle snorted. "No, it's an observation. My wife forgot my birthday last year." "That's rough." She remembered 2 days later. Said, "You're so solid. I didn't even think about you needing anything." Kyle shook his head. "Solid. Like a fridge." Tom laughed, the sound surprising him with its sharpness. "Fridges are important." "Exactly," Kyle said. "But no one says, 'Wow, I really desire that fridge.'" Kyle wandered off, coffee in hand, leaving Tom alone with the thought and a spoon clinking uselessly against ceramic. Solid like a fridge. At home that evening, Tom loaded the dishwasher while Faith supervised homework. Ben complained about fractions. Lucy corrected him with irritating confidence. Faith mediated, patient, calm, effective. Tom watched her from the kitchen doorway and felt affection bloom easily, familiarly. He loved her. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the way love had become a shared utility, like the Wi-Fi. Necessary, assumed, rarely discussed unless it failed. After dinner, Faith kissed his cheek. "I'm heading out for a quick walk with Jen. Back soon." "Okay," Tom said. She hesitated, keys in hand. "You good?" He nodded. "Yeah, go." She smiled, relieved, and left. Tom stood there longer than necessary, then returned to the sink, wiping a counter that was already clean. The next day at work, Tom was praised again. A follow-up email circulated highlighting his award. His inbox filled with polite congratulations. One message stood out, not effusive, just curious. "Didn't know you were the awards type. Congrats. Drinks sometime?" Mara worked 2 floors down. They had collaborated once. She was funny, sharp, married, uninterested in drama. Tom stared at the message longer than he should have. "Drinks sometime." He typed a response, deleted it, typed again. "Thanks." It was unexpected. Drinks could be nice, work stuff only, obviously. He stared at the last 2 words, then erased them. The defensiveness embarrassed him. He hit send. At home that night, Faith mentioned Jen's birthday again, laughing about how crowded the bar had been. She kept saying, "I don't want to be 41, Faith said. "As if it's optional." Tom smiled. "Did she at least have cake?" "Cupcakes," Faith corrected. "Mini ones. Very on trend." She kicked off her shoes and curled up beside him on the couch. Her head fit against his shoulder with practiced ease. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," Tom said automatically. She hummed, satisfied, and turned on a show they both watched without watching. Tom stared at the screen, his mind elsewhere. Everything okay had become a ritual question, not an opening. Thursday arrived with drizzle and a deadline. Mara suggested drinks after work, casual, unremarkable. Tom hesitated before texting Faith. Running a bit late, might grab a drink with a colleague. Home by 8. The reply came quickly. "Okay, thanks for letting me know." No questions. No pause. Gratitude even. He wondered if that was what trust looked like now or distance. The bar was dim, the music unobtrusive. Mara arrived 5 minutes late, apologetic, shaking rain from her coat. "You look exactly like someone who doesn't usually do this," she said, smiling. "Drink?" Tom asked. "Yes, please. Anything uncomplicated." They talked about work, about teams, about the strange performative optimism of corporate emails. It was easy. Too easy. "So," Mara said, sipping her drink, "how does it feel? The award?" Tom shrugged. "Nice. Strange." "Strange how?" He considered lying. "Like being applauded for something I didn't realize anyone was watching." She studied him. "That's oddly sad." He laughed. "It wasn't meant to be. But it is." Tom glanced at his watch, then back at her. "My wife had plans the night of the ceremony." Mara nodded slowly. "Did she know what it was?" "No." "Did you tell her?" "No." "Why not?" Tom stared into his glass. "I wanted her to choose me without context." Mara didn't rush to fill the silence. When she spoke, her voice was gentle. "That's a risky experiment." "I know. She might have chosen differently if she'd known. Or she might have chosen me only because she knew," Tom said. "I wanted to know which one it was." Mara leaned back. And now I don't know what the result means." She smiled sadly. "You sound lonely." The word landed with uncomfortable accuracy. "I think," Tom said carefully, "I've become very easy to rely on. That's not a bad thing." "No," he agreed. "But it's not the same as being wanted." Mara raised her glass slightly. "To being wanted." He clinked his glass against hers. "To noticing when someone isn't." They finished their drinks. No flirting. No lines crossed. Just a quiet acknowledgement of parallel dissatisfaction. When Tom got home, the house was quiet. Faith had left a note on the counter. "Kids asleep. Left you dinner in the oven. Love you. Love you." He ate standing up, staring at the note like it might say more if he waited. Later, lying in bed, Faith shifted toward him, warm and familiar. "Did you have a good time?" she asked, half asleep. "Yes," Tom said. "Good." She settled. Content. Tom stared at the ceiling, the word good echoing uselessly. He thought of Kyle, of fridges, of awards displayed on sideboards, of how love could flatten into function if no one insisted on its texture. He turned toward Faith, watching her breathe. "I don't want to be furniture," he thought. "I want to be chosen." The thought didn't feel dramatic. It felt practical, like a problem he hadn't yet figured out how to solve. Chapter 3, Faith interrupted. Faith Allenson liked systems. Not because she was cold or rigid, but because systems made room for mercy. When things were organized, she could afford to be kind. When the calendar was balanced and the groceries ordered and the emails answered, she could breathe. Most days, she believed her life worked. She woke before the alarm, slipped out of bed without waking Tom, showered quickly, dressed in clothes that meant competence, not invitation. By the time the kids padded into the kitchen, she was already triaging the day. Meetings, deadlines, which child needed gym shoes, which one would forget them anyway. Tom moved through the mornings like a second set of hands. Coffee appeared when she needed it. Lunches were packed without discussion. Permission slips were signed, scanned, returned. Felt like partnership. Felt fair. If there was a problem, Faith reasoned, it would announce itself. She was good at spotting fires. This was just quiet. At work, Faith was decisive. Her team respected her. Meetings ended with action items. She liked the clean lines of cause and effect, the way effort translated visibly into outcomes. If something went wrong, she fixed it or replaced it. Marriage, she believed, worked much the same way. You showed up. You did the work. You didn't dramatize the ordinary. During a lull between calls, Jen texted her a meme about aging and wine. "Still laughing about your husband letting you ditch his thing for my birthday," Jen added. Faith frowned at her phone. "What thing?" She typed back. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. "Wait, didn't he have something that night?" Faith stared at the screen, irritation pricking. "No idea. He just asked if I was busy." Jen responded with a shrug emoji and changed the subject. Faith set the phone down, unsettled. Tom hadn't said anything. If it had been important, he would have. Tom was practical, direct. He didn't sulk or hint or play games. She dismissed the thought and went back to work. That evening, she noticed the plaque for the first time. It sat on the sideboard, half obscured by a stack of unopened mail. Faith paused, reading the inscription. Regional Performance Excellence Award. "Oh," she said softly. Tom was in the kitchen rinsing plates. "Oh, you won an award." He glanced over. "Yeah. When was this?" "Couple months ago." She waited for more. When none came, she felt a flicker of annoyance. "You didn't tell me." "I mentioned I had an event," he said evenly. "An event," Faith repeated. "Tom, this is," she gestured. "This is a big deal." He shrugged. "It was nice." "That's it?" "Nice." He turned back to the sink. "What do you want me to say?" She didn't know. Praise, maybe. Excitement. Something that invited her in. Instead, she felt strangely accused, though she wasn't sure of what. "You could have told me," she said. "I could have," he agreed. The conversation stalled there, unresolved, hanging between them like steam that never quite condensed. That night, Faith lay awake longer than usual, replaying the moment. She told herself she was tired, overworked. She told herself Tom didn't need validation the way some men did. He was solid, confident, self-possessed. Still, the plaque seemed to glow faintly in her mind, accusing her of missing something obvious. Over the next few weeks, she noticed absences that weren't really absences at all. Tom still did everything he always had. He just did it quietly. Invitations dwindled. He no longer asked if she wanted to watch something together. He simply watched. He stopped telling her small work stories, the kind that ended with a shrug and a joke. When she asked, "Everything okay?" he answered yes without elaboration. Once, she snapped, "You don't have to manage me," and immediately regretted it. He had looked genuinely surprised. "I wasn't," he said. She believed him. That almost made it worse. The realization came on a Saturday morning, standing in line at the grocery store, of all places. Faith watched a couple ahead of her argue gently over cereal. Not angry, engaged, present. She felt an unexpected pang of envy. At home, she found Tom in the backyard, fixing the latch on the gate. "Hey," she said. "Hey." She leaned against the doorframe, watching him work. "You've been quiet lately." He didn't look up. "I've always been quiet." "Yes," she said. "But this is different." He straightened, finally meeting her eyes. There was no anger there, just distance, polite and careful. "I didn't realize I'd done something wrong," she said, and hated how defensive it sounded. "You didn't do anything wrong," Tom replied. "That's not reassuring." He considered her. "I think," he said slowly, "we've gotten very good at running our lives." "And bad at?" she prompted. He smiled faintly. Noticing each other. The words landed harder than she expected. Noticing. As if she'd been overlooking him like a piece of furniture that had always been there. I notice you, she said immediately. I know, Tom said. Just not the way I need right now. Faith opened her mouth, then closed it. She realized, with a jolt, that she didn't know what he needed. When had that happened? She stepped closer. Then tell me. He hesitated, and in that hesitation she saw how long he'd been waiting to be asked. Okay, he said. But you might not like it. Faith nodded, heart racing. For the first time in a long while, something in her life felt unsystematic, uncontrolled. And for the first time, she suspected that the quiet she'd been ignoring wasn't peace at all, but a warning she'd been too efficient to hear. Chapter 4, the almost confession. They did not sit down to talk. That later would feel like the first mistake. It began in the kitchen on a Wednesday night, with the refrigerator open too long and the hum of it filling the space where words should have gone. Faith stood barefoot on the tile, scrolling through her phone, brow creased. Tom leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching her with the careful attention of someone waiting for instructions that weren't coming. You said you'd tell me, Faith said finally, not looking up. Tom nodded. I know. Okay, she said, still scrolling. So tell me. He waited. She didn't put the phone down. Can you? He gestured vaguely. For a second? She sighed. Not sharply, but with the fatigue of someone who felt perpetually behind. She set the phone face down on the counter. Sorry. Go ahead. Tom opened his mouth, closed it. The words he'd been rehearsing all afternoon, measured, reasonable, carefully non-accusatory, evaporated under the weight of her expectation. I feel. He stopped, restarted. I've been feeling a little invisible. Faith blinked. Invisible. Yes. She crossed her arms, mirroring him without realizing it. Tom, you're not invisible. You're everywhere. He gave a small, humorless smile. That might be part of it. Her shoulders stiffened. Okay. I don't know what that means. He exhaled slowly. I think we've gotten very good at assuming each other. That's marriage, Faith said. That's stability. I know. He searched for the right phrasing. I don't feel chosen anymore. The word landed badly. He could see it the moment it left his mouth. Faith's expression shifted, not to anger exactly, but to something defensive and tight. Chosen? She repeated. What does that even mean? It means, Tom said carefully, that sometimes I want to feel like you'd pick me even if it was inconvenient. Her eyes flashed. Are you saying I don't pick you? I'm saying you didn't, he replied quietly. Silence stretched between them, thick and brittle. You're talking about the award, Faith said. Yes. Her jaw set. You didn't tell me. I asked if you were busy. That is not the same thing, she snapped. You made it sound casual, like a scheduling check. That was the point. Faith stared at him. So you tested me. Tom flinched. I didn't mean it like that. But you did it anyway, she said. You set me up to fail without giving me the information. I wanted to know if you choose me without context. That's not fair, Faith said sharply. You don't get to withhold information and then judge the outcome. I wasn't judging, Tom said. I was noticing. Well, what did you notice? She demanded. He hesitated, and in that hesitation something in Faith snapped. You noticed what? She pressed. That I had plans? That I didn't read your mind? That I didn't magically intuit that this one vague question meant please prioritize me over your friend? That's not. Because if you wanted me there, she continued, voice rising, you could have said so. You never say so. Tom felt heat creep up his neck. I didn't want you to come because you felt obligated. And now I feel accused instead. Faith shot back. Congratulations. The words hung between them, sharp and regretful. Tom ran a hand through his hair. This is what I mean. We're always so careful not to need each other. Faith laughed. A short, incredulous sound. Excuse me? I need you all the time. For logistics, Tom said, before he could stop himself. Her face went still. That's not true, she said. Isn't it? He asked. When was the last time you needed me emotionally? That's unfair. I'm not trying to be fair, Tom said. I'm trying to be honest. Well, be careful, Faith said, voice tight. Because honesty without kindness is just cruelty dressed up. The word cruelty hit him like a slap. I'm not trying to hurt you. But you are, she said. You're acting like I don't love you because I didn't pass some secret test. That's not what I said. It's what it feels like. They stood there, breathing hard, both of them suddenly aware of how loud the refrigerator was, how small the kitchen felt. I support you, Faith said finally. I have always supported you. Just because I don't make a production out of it. I don't want a production, Tom interrupted. I want attention. Her eyes filled, just slightly, which startled him more than anger would have. I give you my life, she said quietly. I give this family everything I have. And you're telling me that's not enough. That's not what I'm saying, Tom said desperately. I'm saying I don't want to feel like an appliance. Faith stared at him. An appliance. Yes. She shook her head, disbelieving. You're not a fridge, Tom. He winced at how quickly she'd found the metaphor. Sometimes I feel like one. Well, maybe if you didn't stand silently in the corner humming, someone would notice you more, she said, immediately regretting it. The words landed hard. Tom's face closed, something withdrawing behind his eyes. That's not fair, he said. No, Faith agreed. It wasn't. They stood there, the argument exhausted but unresolved, like a fire that had burned all the oxygen out of the room. I think we should stop, Faith said finally. This isn't going anywhere good. Tom nodded. Probably not. She picked up her phone, hesitated, then put it down again. I don't want to fight with you. Neither do I. She rubbed her temple. I don't understand what you want. Tom looked at her, really looked at her, the woman who managed chaos with competence, who loved through action, who had built a life with him piece by careful piece. I want to feel like you see me, he said. Not as part of the system, as a person you still choose. Faith swallowed. I thought that was assumed. That's the problem, Tom said gently. Assumptions don't feel like choices. She nodded slowly, but he could tell the words hadn't quite landed. They were too abstract, too unsystematic. I need time, she said. Okay. She turned toward the hallway, then stopped. For what it's worth, she added without looking at him. I would have gone. I know, Tom said, though he wasn't sure he did. That night, they lay in bed facing opposite directions, a narrow gulf of untouched sheets between them. Faith stared at the wall, replaying the argument, cataloging mistakes, searching for a solution that felt like a plan. Tom stared at the ceiling, wondering if he had just confirmed his worst fear, that needing something unnamed made him unreasonable. Neither of them slept well, and neither of them had said the thing that mattered most. Not yet. Chapter 5, The Other Life Experiment. Tom did not intend to experiment with another life. He told himself this repeatedly on a Friday morning while standing in front of his closet, staring at shirts that all said the same thing. Reliable. He chose one anyway. The fight or conversation or whatever it had been sat between him and Faith like a piece of furniture neither of them had figured out how to move. They were polite now, functional, careful in a way that felt worse than anger. Can you pick up Lucy from piano? Faith asked over breakfast, not looking up from her laptop. Of course, Tom said. Thanks. That was it. No reference to the kitchen argument. No follow-up questions. Just the continuation of the system. At work, Tom found himself watching other versions of life unfold in small, unimportant ways. A coworker complaining about a spouse who texted too much. Another showing off photos from a weekend getaway taken on impulse. A third announcing loudly that he was off the grid for the afternoon because he'd taken a personal day for no reason at all. The idea lodged itself in Tom's mind. What if I didn't do what was expected? Not forever. Not destructively. Just briefly. At lunch, Mara stopped by his desk. Hey, she said. A few of us are grabbing drinks after work. No pressure. No pressure, Tom repeated. Truly, she added. You always look like you're under some. He almost laughed. Instead, he said, okay. He texted Faith. Running late again. Drinks with coworkers. I'll handle pickups. Pause. Then got it. No question. No friction. Permission granted without being requested. The realization made his chest ache in a way he didn't have language for. The bar was louder than last time, crowded with people talking over each other, laughter ricocheting off low ceilings. Tom sat with his colleagues, listening more than speaking, nursing a beer. Mara slid into the seat beside him. You look like a man waiting for something to happen. What kind of something? Tom asked. She shrugged. Anything unscheduled. He smiled. I don't really do unscheduled. Clearly, she said. You schedule your spontaneity. He laughed then, genuinely. That's painfully accurate. They talked easily. About work frustrations. About how adulthood seemed to reward predictability and punish deviation. About how no one warned you that competence could become a trap. You ever wonder who you'd be if no one needed you for anything? Mara asked. Tom considered the question seriously. I don't think I exist in that version. That sounds exhausting. It is, he admitted. She studied him. You know you're allowed to want things, right? The question felt dangerously close to home. I know that intellectually, Tom said. Emotionally, it feels disruptive. Mara nodded. Disruption isn't always destruction. He looked at her then, really looked, not with desire exactly, but with recognition. She wasn't offering an escape. She was offering a mirror. The thought both comforted and unsettled him. When his phone buzzed, he expected a reminder, a question, some logistical need. Instead, it was a photo from Faith. Lucy asleep on the couch, piano book still open on her chest. Caption. She insisted on waiting up for you. Something in Tom's chest twisted. Guilt, sharp and immediate, followed by a quieter resentment he hated himself for feeling. I didn't ask her to, he thought, and then hated that thought too. He typed back, tell her I love her. I'll be home soon. Soon. Always soon. At home later, the house was dark and still. Tom moved quietly, changed, sat on the edge of the bed longer than necessary. Faith stirred. "You're home." "Yes." She rolled onto her side, blinking. "Everything okay?" The question felt loaded now, heavy with mischances. "Yes," he said again, because it was easier than explaining the truth, that he had spent the evening imagining what it would be like not to be indispensable. She reached for his hand, half asleep. "Good." Her fingers curled around his automatically. Familiar. Comforting. Tom lay back, staring at the ceiling, and realized something that surprised him. He didn't want another life. He wanted this one, but with space for desire, for messiness, for being wanted rather than simply relied upon. The experiment had failed, but not uselessly. It had clarified the problem. He turned onto his side, facing Faith, watching her breathe. He loved her, deeply. That wasn't in question. What was in question was whether love could survive on maintenance alone. And for the first time, Tom understood that waiting quietly to be noticed was not the same as being patient. If things were going to change, someone would have to risk being inconvenient. He closed his eyes, already knowing that next time, he wouldn't swallow the words. Next time, he would say the thing that mattered, even if it disrupted the system. Chapter 6. Faith notices the silence. Faith noticed the silence on a Monday morning, which annoyed her because Mondays were already crowded with enough problems. It wasn't the absence of noise. The house still hummed with routine. Coffee machine, toaster, Lucy practicing spelling at the counter, Ben arguing with gravity while putting on his shoes. It was the absence of friction. Tom moved through the kitchen without intersecting her path once. Normally, they bumped, reached for the same drawer, negotiated space with small jokes and apologies. That morning, Tom anticipated her movements with eerie precision. He stepped back before she needed the counter, passed the coffee without being asked, left the room exactly when she entered it, felt curated. "You don't have to do that," Faith said finally, as he handed her her mug. "Do what?" Tom asked. "Whatever this is," she said, gesturing vaguely. "You're acting like a very polite guest." He smiled faintly. "Is that bad?" "Yes," she said. "You live here." "So do you," he replied, not unkindly. That was the problem. Everything he said lately was reasonable, gentle, impossible to argue with without sounding ungrateful or hysterical. At work, Faith found herself distracted. She missed a detail in a meeting and had to ask for it to be repeated. She snapped at a junior analyst and apologized too quickly afterward. During lunch, she stared at her phone, rereading old texts from Tom. Jokes, observations, invitations that had quietly stopped appearing. When did he stop asking me things that didn't need answers? She wondered. The thought bothered her more than she expected. That evening, Faith came home early. On purpose. Tom was in the living room helping Lucy with a puzzle. Ben was sprawled on the floor nearby, narrating an elaborate battle involving dinosaurs and spaceships. Faith paused in the doorway, watching. Tom smiled at Lucy with real attention, not the multitasking version Faith often deployed. He didn't check his phone. He didn't rush. He was fully there. Something twisted in her chest. After dinner and bedtime, Faith lingered in the kitchen while Tom wiped the table. "Do you want to sit for a minute?" she asked. He looked surprised. "Sure." They sat. The chairs felt farther apart than usual. Faith folded her hands together, unfolded them. "I've been thinking about what you said." Tom nodded, cautious. "Okay. You said you feel like I don't choose you." "Yes." She inhaled slowly. "I don't think I realized how much I rely on assumptions." He waited. "I assume," she continued, "that you know I love you, that you know I'm on your side, that because we share everything, the choosing is implied." Tom's mouth curved into something like a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Implied doesn't always feel great." "I know," Faith said. "I'm starting to understand that." She hesitated, then added, "I think I've been loving you the way I like to be loved." That got his attention. "You mean?" he prompted. "I like being useful," Faith admitted. "I like being needed. It makes me feel secure. So I show love by doing, by managing, by keeping things running." Tom nodded slowly. "And I like being wanted." "Yes," she said softly. "And I think I forgot that those aren't the same thing." They sat with that for a moment. "I don't want you to feel like furniture," Faith said, wincing. "Or an appliance. Or whatever metaphor we're currently ruining." A small laugh escaped him. "Thank you. I just..." She rubbed her palms together, searching. "I didn't see it happening. The distance felt like peace to me, like success." "Silence can feel like success if you're used to noise," Tom said. Faith looked at him sharply. "Is that what this is? You're punishing me with quiet." "No," he said immediately. "I'm protecting myself with it. That hurt more than an accusation would have." "I don't want you to protect yourself from me," she said. "I don't want to either," he replied. "But I didn't know how else to stop feeling disappointed." Faith swallowed. "You should have told me." "I tried," Tom said gently. "I just didn't say it well." She huffed a small, humorless laugh. Neither did I. Later that night, Faith lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Tom was beside her, close but not touching. She could feel the space between them like a physical thing. She rolled onto her side. Tom. Yes. I'm bad at this, she said. At what? At noticing emotional shifts before they become tectonic. He smiled slightly. You're very good at earthquakes. Great, she muttered. That's comforting. She turned more fully toward him. I don't want to lose you to politeness. He studied her face in the dim light. I don't want to disappear into it. Silence settled again. But this time it was different. Attentive. Waiting. Can I ask you something without it becoming a debate? Faith said. I'll try, Tom said. What do you actually want from me? The question frightened her with its openness. No system. No checklist. Just him. Tom considered it carefully. I want you to want my company, he said. Not because it's efficient. Because it's me. Faith nodded, eyes stinging. Okay. And, he added, I want to feel like if I ask for you, you'll come, even if it's inconvenient. She let out a shaky breath. I can do that. I don't need it all the time, Tom said quickly. I just need to know it's possible. Faith reached for his hand, tentative. This time, she didn't grab automatically. She waited, giving him space to pull away if he wanted to. He didn't. I missed the award, she said quietly. And I'm sorry. He squeezed her hand. Thank you. I would have gone, she repeated. Not out of obligation. Because I'm proud of you. I know, Tom said. And this time it sounded like he meant it. Faith leaned closer, resting her forehead against his shoulder. I don't want us to just function. Me neither. They sat there, not fixing everything, but no longer pretending nothing was broken. For the first time in weeks, Faith felt the system loosen, not collapse, just breathe. And in that small, unscripted space, she realized that choosing someone wasn't a one-time decision made years ago. It was something you had to keep doing, deliberately, even when it disrupted the schedule. Chapter 7, the unsaid thing finally said. The award resurfaced on a Thursday afternoon in the least dramatic way possible. As a calendar reminder, Faith had accidentally synced to her phone. Regional Performance Excellence, follow-up survey. She stared at the notification longer than necessary, her thumb hovering. Follow-up, as if the thing had never ended. As if it had been waiting patiently for her to catch up. When Tom came home that evening, she was sitting at the kitchen table with the plaque in front of her. She had wiped it clean, moved the mail aside, given it space. Tom stopped short when he saw it. Oh, I'm sorry, Faith said immediately. If this feels like ambush decor. He smiled, cautious. It's fine. No, she said. It's not. I mean, it's fine that it exists. It's not fine that it sat under junk mail for 2 months. He sat across from her, folding his hands together. You don't have to. I know, Faith interrupted. She took a breath. But I want to. That stopped him. She tapped the edge of the plaque. I filled out the survey. It asked if I'd attended the ceremony. Tom winced. I'm guessing you didn't check yes. No, she said softly. I checked no. And then there was a comment box. He looked at her carefully. What did you write? Faith hesitated, then met his eyes. That I was proud of you. That I missed it because I didn't understand what I was missing. And that I'm trying to do better. Something in Tom's expression shifted. Surprise. Relief. Something like grief loosening its grip. Thank you, he said. They sat in silence, but it wasn't the brittle kind. Felt like space being cleared. I want to tell you something, Faith said. And I want you to tell me if I get it wrong. Okay. When you didn't tell me about the award, she continued, I thought it meant you didn't need me. That you had this whole other world where you were fine without my input. Tom frowned slightly. I wasn't fine. I know that now, Faith said. But at the time it felt like you were withdrawing. And instead of asking why, I respected the distance. He let out a quiet laugh. That's very you. I know, she said. I thought I was being supportive. You were being polite, Tom said gently. Those aren't always the same. She nodded. I'm realizing that. She pushed the plaque toward him. Can you tell me what that night was actually like? He hesitated. This was the moment he'd avoided, the one he'd half confessed around. He could still retreat. Keep it neat. He didn't. It was good, he said. Professionally. People said nice things. I felt seen. He paused. And then I looked for you. Faith's throat tightened. I didn't expect you to be there, Tom continued. I just wished you were. I kept thinking how I wanted to turn to you and make a joke, or complain about the food, or just share it. I would have made fun of the font, Faith said weakly. He smiled. Exactly. She reached across the table, covering his hand. This time, there was no hesitation. I didn't know you needed that, she said. I didn't know how to say it, Tom replied, without sounding needy or dramatic. Needing your partner isn't dramatic, Faith said firmly. It's the point. He swallowed. I started wondering if you still wanted me, or if I was just useful. Faith shook her head immediately. No, no. You are not just useful to me. Then why did it feel that way? She looked down at their joined hands. Because I stopped showing you. The honesty of it startled them both. I thought if everything ran smoothly, that meant we were okay, she said. I didn't realize smooth can also mean flat. Tom nodded. I think I started disappearing because it felt safer than asking to be seen. She squeezed his hand. I don't want you to disappear. I don't want to either. They didn't resolve everything that night. They did something riskier. They kept talking. Faith admitted she'd been afraid of wanting more when she was already so tired. That wanting felt like another responsibility. Tom admitted he'd been measuring his worth by how little trouble he caused. That's a terrible metric, Faith said. I know, Tom said. But it's efficient. She rolled her eyes. We are the worst. He laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in weeks. Later, as they got ready for bed, Faith paused in the doorway. There's something I want to do, she said. Tom raised an eyebrow. Should I be concerned? Maybe, she said, smiling. I want to take you out. He blinked. Out. Yes, me, you. No logistics. No kids. No kids. No reason. She shrugged. You tell me. Dinner. Or a walk. Or that weird jazz place you like. I like that place ironically, Tom said. Still counts, Faith replied. I want to choose you. Explicitly. He studied her face, searching for obligation. For guilt. He found none. Just intention. Okay, he said. I'd like that. She exhaled, relieved. Good. They climbed into bed, closer than they had been in a while. Faith, Tom said. Yes. Thank you for asking. She smiled into the dark. Thank you for waiting long enough to let me. He reached for her hand, and this time it felt less like maintenance and more like promise. Outside, the house settled. Inside, something that had been unsaid finally rested. Spoken, imperfect, and alive. For the first time since the applause he couldn't bring home, Tom felt like maybe, quietly, he had. Chapter 8. Choosing without obligation. Faith chose Thursday. Not because it was convenient, it wasn't, but because inconvenience, she was learning, was the point. She told her assistant she'd be offline after 5 without explaining why. She texted Jen a rain check that came with no apology paragraph attached. She asked Tom, asked clearly, if he wanted to go out with her that night. Tonight, he said, surprised in a way that made her stomach flutter. Yes, Faith said. Unless you don't want to. He studied her for a moment, the way he had been doing lately, as if checking for fine print. I want to, he said finally. Very much. Good, Faith thought. Relief shouldn't feel this thrilling. They stood in their bedroom later that evening, both oddly unsure of what to wear. Faith rejected 3 outfits for being too work-adjacent and 1 for being too aspirational. Tom changed shirts twice, then stopped himself mid-button. I don't want this to feel like a performance, he said. Faith smiled. Then don't audition. He laughed. That's good advice. They left the house without a list, without a plan beyond together. The sitter waved them off cheerfully, kids already absorbed in a movie. In the car, there was a brief, awkward silence. So, Tom said, where are we going? Faith considered. I thought we'd walk first. See what feels right. He nodded. I like that. They parked near the river, the air cool and bright with early evening. The path was busy with joggers and couples and people pretending not to be on dates. They walked side by side, hands not touching yet, the space between them intentional. This feels strange, Faith said. Good strange or bad strange? Tom asked. Good, she said. Like using a muscle I forgot existed. They passed a cafe with outdoor seating. Faith slowed. Coffee? She asked. Tom grinned. Spontaneous beverage? Who are you? Someone who's learning, she said, and tugged him gently toward the door. Inside, they ordered without checking phones, sat close enough that their knees brushed. The contact sent a small, surprising jolt through Faith. You know, Tom said, this is what I meant. She looked at him. This? Yes, you noticing, asking, deciding. Faith nodded. I didn't realize how often I let default make decisions for me. Default is seductive, Tom said. It feels efficient. And safe, Faith added. But also numbing, he said. She reached for his hand then, deliberately, threading her fingers through his. I don't want numb, she said. I want awake. He squeezed her hand. Me too. They wandered after coffee, letting the evening stretch. They talked about inconsequential things at first, movies they'd half seen, the neighbor's aggressively ambitious garden, the way Lucy pronounced particularly with too many syllables. Then, inevitably, the conversation curved back to them. I've been thinking, Faith said, as they leaned against the railing by the water, about how I hear requests. Tom tilted his head. Go on. I hear them as obligations, she said. Even when they're invitations, especially when they're emotional. He considered that. And obligations feel heavy. Yes, she said. So I try to remove the weight by making everything optional. But optional can feel like unimportant, Tom said gently. Exactly, Faith said. I was trying to be respectful, and I ended up being distant. He nodded. I was trying not to ask for too much, and I ended up asking for nothing. They stood there, the river moving steadily below them, indifferent and reassuring. I don't want you to stop being competent, Tom said. Or reliable. Those are good things. Faith smiled faintly. High praise. I just don't want them to be the only things, he finished. They won't be, she said, with more confidence than she felt. Then she added, at least not if I'm paying attention. He turned to her fully. And I need to get better at saying what I want before it turns into disappointment. She raised an eyebrow. That sounds suspiciously like growth. He groaned. Don't make it weird. She laughed, and the sound felt lighter than it had in months. Dinner happened almost by accident. A small place they passed twice before stopping. They sat by the window, sharing plates, arguing amicably over dessert. This, Tom said, gesturing with his fork, is my ideal version of us. Faith smiled. No reservations? No agenda. No logistics, she added. He nodded. Just mutual interest. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. I want to be clear about something. Okay. I don't want you to have to earn my attention by being indispensable, Faith said. And I don't want you to wait silently for me to notice. He watched her carefully. What do you want instead? I want us to ask for each other, she said, out loud, even when it's inconvenient, especially then. Tom felt something loosen in his chest. That sounds doable, he said. And, Faith added, I want you to know that when I choose you, it's not because I have to. It's because I want to. He smiled, slow and genuine. That's all I ever wanted. On the drive home, Faith reached over and rested her hand on his knee, casual and intentional. Can we make this a thing? She asked. A thing, Tom echoed. Not this exactly, she clarified. But choosing each other deliberately. Dates without reasons. Attention without efficiency. He nodded. Yes, even when we're tired? Especially then. She laughed softly. You're going to regret agreeing so easily. Worth the risk, he said. At home, the house greeted them with quiet and the faint glow of the sitter's lamp. The kids were asleep, sprawled in familiar chaos. In their bedroom, Faith paused, suddenly unsure again. This doesn't fix everything, she said. No, Tom agreed. But it fixes something. She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his. I don't want to take you for granted anymore. He closed his eyes. I don't want to disappear to avoid being disappointed. They stood there, not rushing, the choice to be present hanging between them like a held breath. Faith kissed him then. Not urgently, not nostalgically, but attentively. A kiss that said I'm here rather than I remember. When they pulled apart, Tom smiled. This, he said, feels different. It is different, Faith replied. Because it's chosen. Later, lying beside him, Faith stared at the ceiling and felt something unfamiliar and welcome. Uncertainty that didn't feel like threat, but possibility. She turned toward Tom, fitting herself against him without thinking. Thank you for waiting, she whispered. He kissed her hair. Thank you for coming. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent. Inside, something quiet and deliberate took root. Not a grand gesture, not a solved system, but a shared decision made without obligation. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like more than enough. Chapter 9. A quieter applause. The applause came back to Tom one morning while he was standing at the sink, rinsing blueberries. Not the sound of it, the feeling. The kids were late, the clock loud with judgment, and Faith was upstairs on a call, her voice carrying faintly through the ceiling. Tom moved through the kitchen with practiced speed, dividing fruit, packing lunches, wiping a spill Lucy had already apologized for twice. Ordinary, efficient, and yet, something was different. Dad, Ben said, hopping onto a stool. You're smiling. Tom blinked. Am I? Yeah, Lucy said. Like when you win at board games but pretend you didn't try. He laughed. That's a very specific accusation. Faith came down the stairs then, phone in hand, jacket over her arm. She caught his eye across the room and paused, not because anything was wrong, but because she wanted to. Hey, she said. Hey. She crossed the kitchen and kissed him. Not quick, not distracted, present. Then she pulled back, smiling. Thank you for doing breakfast, she said. You do it all the time, Tom replied. Yes, she said. But today I noticed. The words landed softly, but Tom felt them all the way through. Not as praise, as acknowledgement. After the kids left, Faith lingered by the door. I'll be late tonight, she said. Dinner with a client. Okay, Tom said. She hesitated. Would you want me to bring something home? Dessert? Maybe? He considered it. Surprise me. She smiled, pleased. I like that. When the door closed behind her, Tom stood alone in the kitchen, listening to the quiet. It didn't feel empty, felt held. They were not suddenly perfect. They still misread each other. Faith still defaulted to problem solving when Tom wanted sympathy. Tom still swallowed words before remembering that silence was a choice, not a virtue. But now they caught themselves. I'm doing the thing, Faith would say mid-sentence, stopping herself. What do you actually need right now? Or Tom would pause, hand on a doorknob and turn back. I want you to come with me, he'd say. Not because you should. Because I want you there. Sometimes she said yes. Sometimes she said no. But the difference was in the asking and the hearing. One evening, a few weeks later, they sat on the couch after the kids were asleep, legs tangled, a show playing neither of them was really watching. You know, Faith said, I used to think love was proven by endurance. Tom glanced at her. Endurance, sticking it out, holding everything together, never needing too much. And now, he asked. And now I think love might be proven by attention, she said. The kind that doesn't optimize itself away. He smiled. That sounds exhausting. She grinned. It is, but also better. He reached for her hand. I don't need grand gestures. I know, she said, but I might still do some. He laughed. Fair warning appreciated. The award moved eventually. Not to a place of prominence, exactly, but to the bookshelf in the living room, between framed photos and a stack of novels Faith meant to reread. One afternoon, Lucy pointed at it. What's that? That, Faith said before Tom could answer, is something your dad earned because he's very good at what he does. Lucy nodded solemnly. You should clap for him. She did, loudly, enthusiastically. Ben joined in, off rhythm and dramatic. Tom laughed, face warm. Faith watched him, clapping too, not because it was required, but because she wanted to see his reaction. He met her eyes, something like wonder flickering there. Later that night, as they cleaned up together, Tom said, You didn't have to do that. I know, Faith said. That's why I did. Months passed. Seasons shifted. The rhythm of their life continued. School events, work deadlines, shared exhaustion. But threaded through it now was something quieter and steadier. Choice. Not the loud kind. Not the cinematic kind. The daily kind. One night, after a long week, Faith came home drained, shoulders tight with responsibility. Tom was already in pajamas, the couch calling his name. I know we said we'd talk tonight, Faith said, dropping her bag. But I don't have much left. Tom studied her for a moment. Then he stood, crossed the room, and took her coat. Do you want company? He asked. Or quiet? She closed her eyes, relief washing over her face. Company, but very gentle company. He smiled. I can do that. They sat together in silence, not the protective kind, not the polite kind, but the chosen kind. The kind that knew it could speak if it needed to. Later, Faith rested her head on his shoulder. Thank you for asking, she murmured. Thank you for answering, he replied. On the anniversary of the award, an email reminder popped up again. Tom almost dismissed it, then didn't. That evening, he mentioned it casually over dinner. You know, he said, it's been a year. Faith looked up. Since the ceremony? Yes, she smiled. We should celebrate. We don't have to, Tom said reflexively. She raised an eyebrow. Careful. He laughed. Right? Old habit. I'd like to celebrate, Faith said. Not the award. You. He felt that familiar tightening in his chest, but this time it loosened just as quickly. Okay, he said. I'd like that too. They didn't plan anything elaborate. Just dinner, the two of them. A walk afterward. No agenda beyond together. As they walked, Faith slipped her hand into his. You know, she said. From the outside, our life probably still looks the same. Tom nodded. Probably. But from the inside, she continued, it feels louder. He smiled. In a good way. Yes, she said. Like we're actually talking. They stopped at the river, watching the lights ripple across the water. I used to think love was proven in moments like that ceremony, Tom said. Public. Defining. And now? Faith asked. And now I think it's proven here, he said. In whether you'd rather be anywhere else and still choose this. She squeezed his hand. I choose this. He believed her. Not because of the words, but because of everything around them. The applause he'd wanted had never really been about noise. It had been about being seen. And standing there, beside the woman who now looked at him deliberately, attentively, Tom realized he didn't need the echo of a room full of strangers anymore. This quieter applause, steady, intentional, earned again and again, was enough. More than enough. He leaned down and kissed Faith, not for an audience, not for memory, but for the simple, ongoing act of choosing. And this time, he brought it home.